Hello friends, I hope you're doing well. Today I'm going to be reviewing the second book in the Queen of the Tearling series called The Invasion of the Tearling by Erica Johansson. This will be a spoiler-free review, but there are spoilers for the first book if you haven't read it, so proceed at your own risk if that's the case. Please check out my review of the first book if you are interested in the series, but without any further ado, let's get right into it. In the first book, Queen Kelsey Raleigh Glynn put an end to the treaty that her mother, the previous queen, made with the Red Queen of Mormain that essentially traded Tearling citizens in exchange for a shaky peace. Kelsey knows that her army stands little chance against the Moor army with their metal armor and weapons, but she's faced with the hard truth: invasion is inevitable and she has to prepare New London for siege. That's the big picture and overarching plot of this second book. And as I had expected, it was a little slow to pique my interest, more so than the start of the first book. There's nothing glamorous about sitting around in a castle trying to figure out the logistics of a siege. It's super important, but not exciting to read about, in my opinion. What really keeps the plot going through the first half of this book are the strange fugues that Kelsey experiences. I know that word now because it's used many times in the book. She starts getting flashbacks of the life of a woman named Lily, who lived in the time before the Crossing, capital C. I mentioned in my first review that the Crossing was super mysterious and confusing, and it made me uncertain of the true genre of this book. It's revealed in the second chapter of this book, so I'm not going to consider this a spoiler, that Lily lives on the east coast of America in the 21st century, which is referred to as being in the Tearling's past. So it's established that this land, the Tearling, is connected to our modern day world in some way. It's hard to try and talk about this without spoiling things, but all of the chapters from Lily's point of view, which are through the entire book, are so interesting and thrilling. It absolutely carried me through the more slow parts of the first half. Lily lives in a very dark future. It's a plutocratic world where the modestly sized rich population have all the power and comfort, while the growing masses of the poor live in squalor. She's among the rich, but lives her life in fear because this is a future where men dominate over women. This is where I want to mention a content warning. There are depictions of rape, domestic abuse, and self-harm, both in Lily's world and Kelsey's, so if you're sensitive to that, then please be prepared. Lily is married to Greg, her abusive husband, who works for the Department of Defense, and the current administration is oppressive, anti-homosexual, censorship of books, martial law. There's essentially no such thing as recognized domestic abuse because men can do whatever they want with their wives. It's absolutely terrifying and awful. But Lily unexpectedly gets involved with this separatist group called the Blue Horizon, who dream of a better world, a more fair and equitable world. Kelsey watches Lily's journey through these strange flashbacks and feels a connection with Lily that she can't explain. And I can't say much more without spoilers, but seriously, those chapters are my favorites, and it really pulls you into the story. But back to the Tearling, Kelsey is going through changes both emotionally and physically, and it's strange and kind of off-putting and confusing a little bit. If you recall, in the first book, it's made clear that Kelsey isn't meant to be a great beauty. She doesn't see herself as such, and her appearance is mentioned a number of times in reference to that. And I think this is important for the character because her mother was apparently stunning, beautiful, and vain, so Kelsey is very against trying to enhance her own physical appearance. In this book, she begins to transform into a more stereotypical beauty, but not because she's like growing into her baby fat or anything. She's literally seeing these unnatural, dramatic changes in her looks over the course of weeks, and other people start to notice also, and it's weirding them out, with whispers of sorcery or witchcraft following her everywhere, and it's somehow connected to the magic in this world, but it's still not very clear what exactly is going on or how magic works. Really, at this point, you still don't know anything about the magic in this world, so it looks like I'll have to wait for the last installment to get that answered. While at times it was a bit frustrating, I appreciated Kelsey's tumultuous relationship with Penn, her closest guard, that starts to develop. And again, she's a teenager. She's just a teenager, and she's put into this position of great power and responsibility, and their relationship is secret and complicated, and it just felt like a very natural turn of events considering everything that she's going through, and it didn't feel forced at all. You watch Kelsey struggle to maintain her sense of honor and self in the face of an approaching army that's ruthless and powerful, and she's forced to consider making choices that go against her better judgment and sense of idealism. Does she decide based on her morals? Does she decide based on how many lives she'll save? Does she decide based on advice from others? The right choice is relative and subject to debate based on person and circumstances, right? So more of the Red Queen's abilities in her past are revealed, and she's a pretty interesting character, more so in this book than the first. She's desperate to get her hands on the 2 mysterious sapphires that Kelsey possesses. She eventually decides to join her army and travel to New London herself. The mysterious darkness that spoke to the Red Queen in the very first book winds up being very influential and is somehow connected to the Fetch, that roguish guy that Kelsey's sort of fawned over in the first book. You meet a few new characters that will undoubtedly play big roles in the final book, but aren't really expanded on here, and you learn more about established characters like the Mace. There are lots of connecting threads flying around, and some of them come together by the end. And as slow as the start was, things picked up steam in the second half and really ended spectacularly. It reminded me of Brandon Sanderson's writing, the way that his books tend to start out very slow and kind of drag, but always end with a bang. As with the first, there are some pretty heavy themes present, like oppression, the struggle between choosing what's right versus what's easy, discerning what's right in the first place, coping with trauma, the dangers of religious power in the wrong hands, and more. I don't have a lot to criticize about the second book except the slow start, which was, in my opinion, pushed along by the chapters from Lily's point of view. The author liked to use the word recoiled a lot, and phrasing similar to that, so by the end it was a little uninspiring when I would see the word. It's a great word, but like it's so vivid, recoiled, and it's so vivid and frequent in the book that I started like picturing someone recoiling in this situation, and it looks a little silly and dramatic in my mind's eye, so it sort of took away from the scene at times. And again, there are still many unanswered questions that might bother some people because we're 2 books in and there are still some things that you just have no idea what's going on. So I do wish they had a better sense of the magic at this point in the series, how it works. But I mean, I guess all in good time, right? There's only 1 book left. So overall, I thought this was an excellent sequel and gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I can't wait to read the 3rd and final book, which is waiting patiently on my shelf behind me. So let me know if you've read the first book or the second, and let me know what your thoughts are. I'd love to talk about it with you. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!